Good morning, everybody. It's COOLA from Rawstocks. We have another edition of our pre-market prep, and we just got something that is potentially indicating a reversal. Stay tuned. We're going to go over it. I want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors, Black Box Stocks and Gamma Edge. Without those guys, we would not be able to provide this data to you guys every single day for free. So make sure you show a little bit of love. Go use the links in our bio to to show them a little bit of love. All right, show them a little bit of love. My goodness. Okay. So yesterday we got the doji, right? We got the doji. Today we open up with PPI super hot, super hot. And so if you guys are not aware, we just came in with a 0.9, 0.9. I'm going to try to pop this up real quick. I didn't really plan to do this, but we can do this. This is no big deal. All right, take a look at this number. Core PPI right here, 0.9. This is likely to change the 100% rate cut in September that was coming. Likely to change that. This will cause a spark in a lot of algos today. So, President Trump speaks at noon, so you need to make note of that. Always when he's talking, you never know. There's volatility there, but we just caught the biggest chunk of it today. Let's move on to some data. Okay, so this morning we were looking, and it seemed as if we had a Mr. IC kind of coming in here. Mr. IC kind of coming in here playing the 64.95 and 64.35. You guys heard me talk about him before. This gentleman will play condors here, looking to maintain price here. Virtually, he was looking for some type of consolidation here at 6,500, and they're probably right. But we just caught a hot PPI number. Okay, so when we see large moves like this, we're going to see below 64.35 shorts really start to tackle this, and we can really drive this thing down if it wants to go. This would breaking below 64.35 this morning would be a VIX event. Okay, so I kind of joked about it. I said 6,400 tomorrow on my X yesterday. And this may be the doji, and then we get the full reversal, right? That's kind of what you see on a reversal like this. So that would bring us all the way back down towards 6,400. We haven't got there yet because of this positioning of this gentleman with the IC. It's a large position. I'm assuming that it's getting bought up here, but will it break down? And that's what we need to be monitoring. And if it does break down, what is that? Where's that bring us to? So the bring us to would be 6,400 for me, which is about right here on SPY, virtually the full reversal, right? So you get the doji, and then you get a sell-off, and it brings you virtually back towards the open there. When will that happen? Who knows? Will that happen? We're not so certain. We play the odds, right? So we play where there's weakness, we play where there's strength, and we play pivots. And that's what we do. So looking at this morning, as I was doing this, starting to make my chart here, we got the sell down straight into, let's go to SPX here, straight down into the bottom of our range here. So this is actually, let's see, template. This is the negative wall here. And positive gamma really runs all the way down. When you look at the data here, it really runs all the way down towards 64.40, and that's a pretty large position there. But I'd say your pivot point is 64.60 as far as a transitional zone. So we're gonna say it's right here, and anything under here is really undecisiveness and a little bit of weakness. Okay, but as we stand down here, based on what we're looking at, you can see pricing's right here, virtually at the previous day's close there. If we come and look at that, that puts us right near our gamma wall. Okay. So this is a tricky range. Okay. Very tricky range because it's a terrible PPI, but we need to know that big money is positioned for this to bounce. And if we know that, then we need to take advantage of that. And at least in the sense of this, okay? If we see 64, say 35 breakdown, sure, we can get short on the day and we'll let it run until it breaks back over the top of 64.35 if it wants to. But I imagine that 6,400 would be your downside target if 64.34 breaks. Okay. So keep an eye on that. That's going to be that day's open. And we might even see it, if it's that bad, might see it break through this and go for the close down here into this range. All right. That's if it's that bad. Looking at it, I imagine, like I said, that we're going to be able to buy calls down here on the open if we hold for a severe discount. And if you look at this, this could drive it all the way back up, right? We talk about this often. We could drive, when ICs come, they play pinball, right? So I joked around before PPI dropped and I said, I love IC days because they generally play the full range. Well, we got the full range this morning down. Will they get the full range up? You have to determine if a strike, a price based on premium, we're going to have a spike in IV and all that, right? We have to look at what makes sense for you. Can you buy a 64.70 at open for really cheap and have, I'm not saying you go crazy, but I'm saying you have an opportunity to have a low cost entry for a potential banger of a trade because of what just happened. All right. IV is going to spike. It's probably going to burn you if you buy it right away. What's the right decision? Who knows? But you could probably buy a call for tomorrow, even at 60, like say 64.90, and see if this thing wants to squeeze all the way back up to the range. If not, we're going to break down most likely right here and go through. So the idea is that we do have to respect this range here. We're looking for a call to drive this up based on the data, right? At least until we can go and test probably into the 64.65 area or into the 64.60 area, right? So this was yesterday's open and close. I imagine we're going to retest into the 64.60, which is our transitional area, or find ourselves rejecting here, rolling back over, testing this, or getting the extension down here. All right. So I imagine this move would happen quick if we hold 64.35. All right. If it doesn't hold, then watch the slip and we can see ourselves running all the way back down towards 6,400. All right. Let's take a look at Tesla. We're having a drop down, gap down in Tesla right now. We talked about it going and spiking towards 350. Well, we got the 350 yesterday, right? Well, after 350, and we talked about where the profit taking would be, and it did exactly that. So now we're kind of pushing back down towards the low side. So now we're on our transitional area. Okay, so this is going to be right on it. Again, kind of where I'm talking about positioning, right? We're right on the pivot to the downside. So you need to monitor this as if it holds 335. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing tries to make another attempt back up towards 340. If it breaks 340, we could see a potential surge back up to 350 on some level of squeeze. Okay, so you need to be ready for that. Now, if you break through, say 335, I expect 330 to come back into this gap fill here. So watch the 335 slip. So you would have a 335 or a 330 put kind of loaded for this thing to break down. You're watching the liquidity sweep or the low sweep here for it to be maybe a buy zone for people. But ultimately what we'd see is probably see this thing push down towards 330 based on the data that we're seeing here. And it could slip all the way towards 320 if the market starts to turn sour. All right. So we're going to, this is our negative gamma shelf at 332.5. We'll put it at 330. okay, based on what I'm seeing. So below 330, you know that this thing's probably going to be dropping towards 320 based on what we're seeing here. That's what I'm gonna stand by. This isn't enough for me to really get excited about, but 330 definitely has some support. You can see the delta swap there. So positive gamma right in this 335. We're in this no man's zone here, but under 335, you could look to short it towards 330, but you're a little bit of in a bounce zone, a little bit of an in-between zone, okay? So anything over the top of 335, go ahead and get long for a 340 test or potentially squeeze into 350. Ignore the noise. Play the numbers, okay? Don't get distracted by what everyone's saying. Don't get distracted by the doom and gloom. You're solely playing the pivots, okay? You see a 5-minute close that looks bullish over the top of it, right? Here's the same thing right here, right? 5-minute candle, shit. Go ahead and get in. Look to put your stop underneath the low of that and look to ride it up towards the top of that, all right? That is the way this works. You do not listen to the noise. You listen to what you see on the data, all right? Moving on to NVIDIA here. We're looking at 185 to 175. We kind of talked about the slipping or maybe a little bit of the fatigue on NVIDIA. But we just talked about how it constantly be bought up into this 180 area, right? Well, now 180 is kind of flipping. All right, 180 is kind of flipping here. So I imagine that we're going to lose 180 and you're going to test this 177.5 area. Okay, so this is going to be my negative transitional spot right here. I'm not going to put 180 because I don't feel confident that that's going to be an area based on what we've seen. We're not going to say that's enough weakness. We've seen enough pops below it for it to recover. 177.5, you break below that, 175, potentially 172. But you could see this right here. This is a large support. It's low, right? But this is right here. This is something where you're seeing a ton of puts being sold here. All right. So they're going to try to defend 175.5. I know that doesn't give you a ton of room, but it gives you enough to make some money, right? So you just got to be prepared for that. So 175 is going, I'm going to move this up. 175. 175 is going to be our floor today. We're going to move the 175, negative shell, positive gamma support there. Just know that if you break 175.5, I wouldn't be surprised, or excuse me, 175. If you break 175, I wouldn't be surprised to see this thing have some type of like VIX sell event, right? Spike towards 170, towards this low here, 171. Let's call it 171.45. Wouldn't be surprised to see it go and target that low there, based on what we're seeing. All right. So overall, full complex still remains bullish, okay? But we talked about some of these areas kind of popping up that was kind of changing a little bit of the sentiment here, that maybe there was a little bit of fatigue, maybe there was a pullback coming, and that's what we're seeing, all right, right now. Not saying that this thing is going to pull all the way back or anything like that. I am not saying that, all right? NVIDIA has a clear 185 target to the upside. We see that. All right. There's a clear draw there, but will this, as of right now, it has that. Will this hold our areas we need to see it hold, which is virtually on full complex, your pivot zone? Really, I guess you could say is right around that 177.5, 175 zone is really where I would put it, where it would start to be saying, hey, maybe there's some weakness here. Okay. But this is too bullish to really get short on, in my opinion, as the data reads now. But that data can change. Okay. So that's what we're looking at for the day. I think that the most probably best thing you can do here today is you're looking for, say, a 180 call if you see a break over 180 on NVIDIA. I think there's enough evidence here to say, hey, I'm going to give it $1 stop loss here to say that I think this thing can break over the top of 180 and try to drive us back up to 185. We definitely see this type of move if we were going to get the S&P squeeze that we talked about earlier. That would be mandatory in my opinion. We'd also probably see Tesla move to the upside towards 350. So this thing would all be a big shock scare, right? And this is where I want you to think, right? So we move from down here. Our target is up here at 648, right? So 6,500. So you have the opportunity to look to say, hey, I'm going to take a weak swing at say 652 or something like that, right? 652 is 6,500 virtually on SPX, and that would be pretty cheap. I'd probably be pretty cheap to buy something like that as we spike in this level. It's just food for thought. This is where you have to look at discounts. This is where you look at what we call target buying. It's the same thing we did when we were playing the IWM shorts and the SPY shorts. We were doing a targeting. If CPI was bad, we were looking for this thing to drop towards 630 and all the way back down towards 620 and close this gap down here. It was a targeted deal. It was based on the price that we got and the amount of time that we could see it happen. Based on the implied move. So with this here, that is 100% what I'm expecting to see today, right? So I'm going to play it as I see it. As the data updates, I don't generally update my data, right? But when a big day like this comes in, it is something that we'll definitely take in consideration. But I usually just play the opening print for the first, couple hours. And then after that, I don't really play anymore. Maybe a little thing here and there if we hadn't touched any of the areas and we spent some time chopping. So hopefully this is helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, any follow-ups, if you're in the Discord, you of course message me. Otherwise, if you guys are interested in checking out what we do, come take a look at us at rawstocksllc.com, or of course we have the link in our bio in YouTube and X and everywhere this thing gets posted. So thanks for tuning in today, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe this. Block out the noise, and we'll catch you tomorrow.